Hi, and welcome to another first grade flipped classroom video. Tonight's video is going to be about telling a math story problem to go with a number sentence. Let's get started. When I first look at this number sentence, the first thing I notice is that it's an addition sentence. In class, we have learned that addition means putting together or two groups that are joining each other. So when I tell my story to match this number sentence, my two groups need to join each other or come together. The next thing I need to decide when I'm telling a story is I need to decide who the characters are going to be in my story. I could tell this story about kitty cats, I could tell this story about pieces of candy, or I could even tell this story about kids, just like you. Let's get started. For this story, I decided that I'm going to use flowers as the characters in my story. I'm going to start by looking at the first number. The first number in my number sentence is 7. So the first part of my story is going to tell about that number 7. There were 7 yellow flowers in the garden. Now I need to tell about the other 3. And I need to make sure the person reading the story can tell that I'm adding those 3 to the 7. There were 3 red flowers in my garden also, showing that the yellow flowers and the red flowers were both in the garden. The next part I need to do in my story is I need to come up with a question that would help the person reading the story know what they need to figure out. So my question for this story is, how many flowers were in my garden in all? That way, the person reading the story would know that they needed to add the 7 yellow flowers to the 3 red flowers to get their answer. So for 7 plus 3 equals 10, my story problem would be, there were 7 yellow flowers in the garden. There were 3 red flowers in my garden also. How many flowers were in my garden in all? Let's try another one. For this one, I'm going to use students in my story. I'm going to start with the 2. There were 2 boys playing tag at recess. Now I'm going to tell a sentence about the 4, showing the person reading the story that those 4 friends were joining those 2 boys at recess. 4 more girls came to join the game. That tells the person reading the story that the girls joined the boys to play tag together. Now remember, when I want the person reading the story to come up with the answer, I give them a question. My question for this story would be, how many kids were playing tag at recess in all? When they would read that, they would know that I wanted them to add the 2 boys to the 4 girls to get their answer. Let's try one last problem. My number sentence is 8 plus 2 equals 10. And I'm going to make this story about dogs. Before we start, I want to see if you can make up a story about dogs to go with this number sentence. Go ahead, give it a try. I'll give you a minute. Let's see if your story is close to my story. I started with the 8, so my first sentence in my story problem is going to talk about the 8. There were 8 dogs playing in the yard. My next sentence is going to be about my next number. It's going to talk about the 2 dogs joining the 8 dogs that I started with. 2 more dogs came to join them. Now remember, my last sentence is going to be a question that helps the reader know I want them to add those first 2 numbers together to get their answer. My question for this problem would be, how many dogs were playing in the yard in all? That way, the person reading it would know that they needed to add the 8 dogs to the 2 more dogs that joined them to get an answer of 10. 10 dogs were playing in the yard in all. For your homework tonight, you need to write down how many dogs there were in all. Write that number on your homework log. That's the end of tonight's Flip Classroom video. We are going to be talking about this tomorrow in class. If you'd like to watch the video again, go ahead. If not, I'll see you tomorrow.